Paul,
Fab.
are the salespeople lazy?
I know some lazy salespeople.
All right, so because I work on the operational side of things, I tend to see a lot of under the hood stuff, and I tend to see sometimes, but I'm not a sales consultant, so sometimes is it just like standard behavior? Sometimes I question, right? Like when salespeople are like constantly rewriting their messages instead of making phone calls, or constantly prospecting on LinkedIn but actually not reaching out and adding people to the CRM but not reaching out to anybody, or like doing one email and then moving on to the next thing. And lazy is a strong word. I think it's very clickbaity, so we'll see where this goes. But you mentioned something offline, which is unmotivated, and I was just wondering, what's better? Is it better to do all that, or is it better to just go out and do it? Just make your call. The call will be awkward. Your email will suck. Your LinkedIn message will be too pushy. Whatever. But you learn by doing, right? And we're talking about smaller organizations. Obviously, large organizations with thousands of salespeople have like their process, and it's very clear to see who's functioning and who's not functioning. So let's stick to smaller teams. But what do you think? Like, are they lazy? Are they unmotivated? Is it something else? Am I just impatient as an operations person seeing all this?
There's probably some of that. I think it could be a variety of things. So some people are lazy, and some people go into sales because they're lazy, because they're not going to be working from 9 to 5. And honestly, I've been in sales for 30 years. I've seen a lot of that. People just figure, hey, I'm on the road. I can do what I want. I'm only really working 3-4 hours a day, and I went into sales for that reason. I didn't want to be sitting behind a desk. I wanted to be a rock star. And I said, okay, what's the best thing I can do? I'm going to go and be a sales guy, be on the road. So, but here's the thing. Most people are lazy if they don't like what they do. Right? So if you don't like what you do, you're not motivated, then you're lazy. But are you going to say, don't be lazy, go to work? No, you need to be motivated what you do. This is not, you can't just pick up and do something you don't like doing if you're not motivated by it, and it's going to show. So your emails are going to suck. Your phone calls are going to suck, and your whatever it is going to suck. So that's one thing, right? If you're not motivated, it can be perceived as laziness. But if you don't find what gives you passion, then you can be seen as a lazy person. Some people are lazy just in general. They're happy not doing much and hanging out. And what you need to do is hire the people that are motivated. But you need to find out what their motivation is. So that's the first thing. The other thing you talked about is, always retweaking the email, whatnot. I don't think that's laziness. I think that's someone who's being a perfectionist or is insecure or lacks confidence of their message. And they want to make sure things are perfect before they reach out to people. Well, that can be, again, perceived as laziness, but it can actually be perfectionism because you're not happy with what it is that you've written. So listen, I've also managed a lot of people. I've had a lot of people on my teams, and I've had people who have lazy days or have people who are unmotivated for a while. And I have people who are, and the question always should be not, hey, get back to work, you lazy bum. It should be, what's up? Why aren't you motivated? Why aren't you, use a consultative approach on your team. It's a management thing. Right. It's a management thing. And if you're a good manager, you'll find out. And if it's something you can fix, you fix it. If it's something you can't fix, what do you do then?
Right.
So what do you do then when it's something you can't fix? Well, you'll either lose your people or you'll have to fire them if it's something that they have that they can't do.
Yeah, or maybe they're a better fit somewhere else in the organization. Maybe sales is not their thing. But...
or another organization.
Yeah, and I can see how that's a tricky subject, right? Where it's like, but at the end of the day, if I'm a sales leader and and the team is probably too broad. Like I have, let's say, one or two lazy salespeople, regardless of what's underneath. Like, like what's my next step? Like I understand, like the, sitting down with them, understanding the motivation, but and it could be a temporary thing. And I know we've talked about this in the past, like obviously life happens, right? You get divorced, you get, that. So I think one thing is just understanding there's something going on today, especially if it's not congruent with past behavior. But let's say it's not a situational thing. Like what do you do? It feels like sitting down with somebody, understanding their motivation, I'm like, you're in sales. Like if you can't, if nothing's happening in your life, right? You're not getting divorced, you're not sick, you're not whatever. You're like, I mean,
So
and
Fab,
you're
let me
not,
ask you something.
yeah.
So let's say you're a leader, okay, and you say, "Oh man, I hire salespeople, and they're always so lazy. I'm never happy with them." Where's the problem?
Okay, well, you said a magic word there was always, right. If this is a consistent problem where it happens to every salesperson, or like 5 out of 4 sales, or 4 out of 5 salespeople that you hire, like then there's clearly the common denominator is not the salesperson, right? Like it's there's something more at a leadership level, whether it's you or higher up, or it's a company culture or something like that. I agree with that.
So let's say then, okay, let's put it differently. Let's say you've got 10 salespeople, and you perceive one or two of them to be lazy all the time. Then they don't achieve their objectives, right? So they're not doing what you want them to do. So step one is be consultative, figure it out, ask them what's going on. Step two is, have an action plan. Like, okay, this is what I expect of you. Are you motivated to do this? If they aren't, then step three is you've got to part ways.
Mm.
They can maybe work in another department. They can go marketing. Lazy salespeople are often good marketers. I'm kidding.
Alyssa's not here. What's up with that?
I'm kidding.
I'm gonna replay this clip next time she's on with
Yeah,
us.
you should. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. They can go in RevOps. Those guys are. So, but no. All kidding aside, you really do need to know. Listen, think of every time you've woken up in the morning on the weekends. And some Saturdays you wake up and you're totally motivated, and other Saturdays you wake up, you're like, oh, I just want to stay in bed, right? So people do have that. Now, if you're waking up every Saturday, you're happy all week, you're waking up every Saturday and you're not motivated, there's something wrong in your life, right? There's something you don't like about Saturdays. Well, every Saturday I got to mow the lawn, prune the trees, take the dog out for a 7-hour walk, clean the cars, whatever. And maybe you hate doing all those things. Well, that's part of motivation. My honest opinion, Fab, is that
Yes.
people are lazy when they have to do things they don't want to do.
And so you have to understand what they want to do, and that could come through larger motivation. But I guess what I was trying to say before, and I wasn't able to verbalize it, is that if I have a goal, right? If I'm motivated to buy a new house, go on a trip, whatever, and those are external things, it could be internal too. Like, I just want to help salespeople, like you're a sales consultant. My motivation is to help salespeople. Like, you're able to find that motivation. I think what I was trying to say is, like, if there's a consistent lack of performance, to me, it's almost clear that they're not in the right position, right? Because if you can't get driven, it's like, you're right, bad example because you're a solopreneur, but if you're selling accounting software and you just can't get motivated at helping companies do better accounting, like, sales is probably just not the right position for you.
Yeah.
Even if at the end of the day, like, I'm looking to do a round the world trip and commissions would help me, and some people are able to self-motivate along that temporarily. But, to me, if you can't get motivated by what you're selling, like, you just shouldn't be selling that. I mean, it's
well, it's a little
clear.
more complicated than that, because it could be the work environment. You could have a toxic work. It could be, I love the product, but I've got a toxic work culture. You could have a toxic manager. You could have, a stupid sales operations system. You could have, really clunky CRM that doesn't work. You could have a horrible salesperson. There's a whole whack of other stuff that can affect the motivation of the individual. As silly as this may sound, I remember at one point in my past career, I was in an office. In one of my jobs, I was in an office, and then they put us in cubicles. And it didn't work for me. Just didn't work. I wasn't a cubicle guy. I talk loud, and I hated it. And I saw it as at the time, I saw it as an insult, because everyone had offices, and like, you know what? And my motivation went down. So if someone spoke to me and said, "Hey, what's the issue?" Well, I would have said it might sound trite and silly, but I don't have as easy time. And this was a job where we were basically in the office all the time. So,
Right.
and I left because I
But that's
wasn't,
it. But that's what I was saying, right? Like maybe
yeah,
you like the product and you like selling, but that the third element, which is like the environment that you're in, was not there. And I don't think depending on the company culture, like if they want salespeople to be in a cubicle, and that's that. And obviously, this is a long
yeah.
time
And it
ago,
was
but
for me to say, okay, this is the way they thought, and I had to leave. So here's the thing. Here's the thing. You can't motivate someone. I'm sorry.
no.
People, I'm going to motivate you. You don't motivate anybody. You let someone get motivated by offering things that motivates them. It's sort
Hmm.
of the opposite of fixing a car. If your car's broken down, you go figure it out. You'll change the spark plugs, whatever. You'll fix this or fix that, or change the oil or whatever you do in a car to fix it. Change a camshaft, whatever it might be. And you can do that. You can't go in and fix a salesperson. You
Hmm.
can't go in and say, okay, here, oh, he's lazy again. Okay, we're gonna go change the oil. No, it's like, what is it? What is it that's making you unmotivated?
Yeah.
Particularly if there's a change in behavior. If they were always lazy from the start, well, then you're just bad at hiring, and you
Hmm.
didn't do your due diligence in screening them properly. But then again, if you have 20 people and 2 of them are not happy at a certain point in time, first thing is you have to figure out what it is. You have to have a consultative approach. It's got to be figuring out without blaming.
Yeah.
Jack Welch would say, just fire the bottom 20%. And Simon Sinek would say, well, no, find out what's making them unmotivated. They might become your best people in the end,
Hmm.
because you might only tweak a few things. So there's always a cause to lazy. It's either physical or mental.
Yeah.
If it's physical, okay, maybe they're not eating well or they're not sleeping well or something at home, like
Or
you
they're in a
said.
bad environment, like you were saying about the
Yeah.
cubicle.
Or a bad cubicle. Exactly. It's like they it's too loud next to them, or it's or they're always in a cubicle and you put them in an office and they need the hustle and bustle of the office. um, Whatever it might be, but figure it out. But one thing I know that, and it depends how long into the process. So let's say they're lazy right from the start. Well, then, you know, you cut your losses. Maybe your hiring process is not so good. So, but let's say you've had someone who's really motivated, who's no longer motivated, their life circumstances have changed, or they no longer like the job. Well, you need to face these realities and see what it is you're going to do with them.
Hmm.
People are very rarely lazy just because they want to be lazy.
No, you're right, and I really like what you said, which is you can't motivate people. I think that's what a lot of instinct is, right? I'll motivate them. I'll keep a closer eye on them, and that keeping a closer eye on the team and all that is valid in terms of like, well, let's see what's going on.
Yes.
But it's not like you want to
Again,
release the
sorry, I got to
fans.
interrupt you
But
there. I got to interrupt you there because keeping a closer eye on them, being a micromanager, is probably the worst thing you do. Keeping a
right,
closer eye on them to sort of see what it is that makes them be unhappy.
yeah,
If you have an open approach to saying, okay, I'm just going to listen to these people and see what's wrong, you'll probably find out what's wrong and if it's something you can fix or if it's something you can't fix.
yeah,
And if you go in there, though, just telling them how great they have it and they have to stop being lazy. So that's why I don't like the term keeping an eye on them, because we have to define what that means.
yeah. That's true. Yeah, I mean, the goal is not to be micromanaging what happened. What happened here was this. Like, I think that's too much. But I think when I say keeping an eye is like maybe just being more involved, whether that means also coaching them more. Like, there's like it's just being more present, I guess would be. But yeah, it is a fine line. It can be a fine line between present and micromanaging. But I like what you said. Like, I'm going to motivate them. I think it's about. You're right. It is definitely about understanding what's wrong. Like, I don't know anybody, but it's like I'm wondering in the same way that salespeople, like don't want to disqualify an opportunity because they don't want to have a pipeline that looks empty or empty. I'm wondering if a lot of sales managers are just afraid of what the ultimate answer is, right? Which is like, Sarah's just not, or Sonia or Max are just not motivated, and we're gonna have to let them go. And we've tried what we had to, and that's scary because then you have like the empty seat syndrome or whatever, right? Like you just have like there's somebody that's not there, and you have to hire somebody else, you have to ramp them up, and like that's a big thing, especially if you're a busy manager, that can seem quite daunting.
And it's interesting, right? So I know some companies that say, oh, we have such a hard time filling our seats. Usually when you have a hard time filling a seat, it's because in a competitive environment, it's because what you're offering is not that competitive. And if you have high demand for what you're doing, well, then you have the choice of choosing the most efficient and productive people.
Right.
So you have to look at that as well. But if we let's come right back to the lazy thing. Lazy is a bad word, right? It really is. But I think anyone who says, "Oh, I've got people that are lazy," I don't know why you're bad. If you say that, you're a bad manager. It should be.
That's true.
It should be. I've got lazy people. I've got to figure out why.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because,
or they're not doing much, and I have to figure out why.
And you said something I really like too, is that it's all about coaching. Because if
Right.
you're coaching someone to get better, you're going to find out what makes them not perform. Right?
Yeah.
So it really is a lot about coaching. And in coaching, you're going to find out. If you coach properly, you're going to help them move forward. And if they don't want to move forward, then you're going to have to tell them, look, you're maybe not in the right place. This is not the spot for you.
Sure. So I guess at the end of the day, if you're feeling your team is not performing, it's about understanding it's your fault, because you're not spending the time understanding what's motivating them. Because usually when somebody's not performing, it's because they're not motivated.
Yeah.
And you can't be afraid of what the answer is, right? Maybe I don't like this job. I thought I liked sales. I didn't like sales. And you might have to part ways, whether that, like you said before, that it could mean I once worked with a salesperson who became a developer at the company, right? He was just, that's what he wanted to be. Like, he wanted to be a developer, and he found his way in through sales, but it wasn't like his main thing. Like, he was okay, but it wasn't his thing. And so I don't know what the whole story behind that one was, but by sitting down with them, you understand what their motivation is, and maybe they could be a great asset to your company. They're just not salespeople. They're marketers or HR or whatever.
Yeah. And that's a good point, Fab. And I'm a bit harsh in saying we'll get rid of them, but it's true that if you're in an enterprise, so let's say you're in a company that's sexy at whatever level, like this guy wanted a programmer or developer. Well, maybe his way in was through sales, and then look, you really want to be a developer, you've got what it takes, we'll put you in that seat, right? So that fair enough. Usually goes the other way, but it's very rare that I've heard of salespeople go in through sales to go do something else.
No, I know. It's probably the exception, but still, I think I've seen salespeople move into other roles. Maybe an account. We had another episode where we talk about account management, right? Like maybe it's the prospecting and all that, but they love working with clients and they love helping clients. They just don't like being told no, hung up on, ignored, and all that stuff.
Yeah, who loves that, right? Some people just have something to prove, but that's interesting too, because it really is about finding out. You're right about what motivates them, but the only way to find that out, and I was saying it earlier, and you really have to be open-minded. But the way open-minded questioning is really coaching. It's really about being a good manager. It's not about dictating what you expect of them. It's about finding out why they aren't performing what they want, and that comes through coaching by finding out the motivation. So when you said coaching, very, very important.
Awesome. Paul, always fun.
I agree. Thanks, God.
That
Always fun. Talk to you later.